They don't enter your life loudly, not the Machiavellian. They don't storm in with arrogance or charm you with a blinding smile, or drown you in affection like the narcissist. No, the Machiavellian arrives quietly, softly, almost invisibly, and before you ever realize it, they've already assessed you, because that's the first truth you need to understand. A Machiavellian doesn't meet you, they evaluate you. Your reactions, your weaknesses, your values, your blind spots, all cataloged in minutes. Not out of curiosity, not out of connection, but out of strategy. To them, people are not people. People are positions, opportunities, variables, resources. You are a piece on a board they've been studying long before you entered their line of sight, and they play the long game. They think in silence. Most people speak to think. Machiavellians think before they speak. Quiet, observant, composed, collecting information with every breath you take. While others rush to fill the silence, the Machiavellian listens. They listen to what you say, what you don't say, what you avoid, what excites you, what scares you, what breaks you. Silence is their weapon. Patience is their blade. You don't feel challenged by them. You feel comfortable, seen, understood. But they're not connecting, they're calibrating. Emotion is not a language they speak. You have to understand this clearly. A Machiavellian isn't driven by emotions, they use emotions. Anger is a tool, charm is a disguise, sadness is a tactic, vulnerability is a trap. They don't feel the way you feel, not because they lack emotion, but because emotion never controls them. Where you would lash out, they would plan. Where you would forgive, they would analyze. Where you hesitate, they strike. Imagine someone with the emotional detachment of a surgeon and the strategic patience of a chess master. That is the Machiavellian mind, cold, precise, unbothered. People are not partners, they are positions. When a Machiavellian looks at you, they don't see you. They see what you provide, how you respond, what you reveal, where you can be used, where you can be placed, how predictable you are, how much control you will require. You are not a friend, you are not a lover, you are not a threat. You are a calculation, not out of cruelty, but efficiency. Cooperation and connection are not emotional experiences for them, they are transactions. They don't seek closeness, they seek advantage, and they don't need to dominate you to use you. All they need is for you not to notice. Calm under pressure, because they planned for it. When chaos erupts, most people react, but Machiavellians don't react, they reveal. Pressure doesn't destabilize them. Pressure exposes their preparation. They remain calm because every scenario you fear, they've already rehearsed it in their mind. You raise your voice, they lower theirs. You express emotion, they flatten theirs. You try to confront them, they deflect subtly, surgically. You fight with your heart, they fight with your psychology. And long before you realize it, you're not arguing with them, you're arguing with the version of you they already predicted. To you, it feels like coincidence. To them, it's choreography. The Machiavellian never shows their hand. This is the rule they live by. Reveal nothing, control everything. They don't show their intentions, they hint, they nudge, they plant seeds. They let you walk into the trap, thinking it was your idea. If they want information, they make you feel safe. If they want compliance, they make you feel guilty. If they want to test loyalty, they manufacture a scenario to watch how you respond. If they want power, they slowly remove yours while making you believe you're in control. Their greatest weapon is that you never see them as a threat, not until it's too late. The mask they wear isn't emotional, it's strategic. Unlike the narcissist, the Machiavellian doesn't need admiration. They don't chase validation, they don't crave attention, they don't need to be worshipped. All they need is advantage. So their mask isn't loud, it's subtle, approachable, competent, helpful, grounded, rational, predictable. You trust them because they make you feel like everything is under control. But that's the trick, because everything is under control. Theirs, not yours. They don't outplay you, they outweight you. A Machiavellian's greatest strength is time. They do not rush, they do not force, they do not chase, they wait. Patiently, quietly, strategically. They wait for moments when others expose too much. They wait for missteps. They wait for emotional reactions. They wait for opportunities you don't notice. And when the moment comes, they strike with the precision of someone who never acts on impulse. The rest of us live moment to moment. A Machiavellian lives move to move. They don't hope to win, they plan to win, long before the game starts. This is the predator's mind. Not a villain, not a monster, a strategist. Someone who sees what you ignore, what you fear, what you want, what you hide, what you cling to, what you'll never give up. And they use that advantage not to destroy you outright, but to shape you quietly. A Machiavellian predator doesn't need to roar, they only need to whisper, because the scariest manipulation is the one that feels like stability. And now that you understand how they think, it's time to learn how they operate. Part 2. The Machiavellian Playbook. There's a moment in every Machiavellian's life where they quietly realize something. Most people don't think, they react. Most people don't plan, they hope. Most people don't manipulate, they assume. And that's the moment the Machiavellian decides, whether consciously or instinctively, to stop participating in the emotional chaos of humanity and instead begin engineering it. Because Machiavellians don't control people in the loud, dramatic ways cinema loves to portray. They control people through calibration, through psychology, through the smallest, subtlest shifts. A look, a pause, a question asked too gently, a compliment delivered too precisely, a silence timed perfectly. That's their power. Invisible, surgical, effective. Today, we open their playbook. Number 1. The first law. Predict the person. To the Machiavellian, prediction is power. Before they act, they study you. But their assessment is not emotional, it's computational. They ask themselves questions you don't even know matter. What does this person fear? What do they crave? What do they protect? What do they avoid? What do they think they are hiding? What do they lie about to themselves? What fantasy controls them? A Machiavellian knows your motivations before you do. And once they map your desires and fears, you become a predictable system. Predictable systems are easy to manipulate. They don't manipulate your personality, they manipulate your predictability. The second law. Control the frame. Most people argue inside the frame. Machiavellians rewrite the frame itself. You think the conversation is about the problem. They make it about your tone. You think you're debating the facts. They shift it to your memory. You think you're confronting them. They make it about your overreaction. That is their signature move. They never let you define the reality. They define it for you. Control the frame, control the mind. It's why you always feel like you're one step behind, because you're fighting battles inside a story they already authored. The third law. Engineer incentives. The Machiavellian knows that the strongest form of control is not force, it's motivation. So they engineer situations where you want to do what benefits them. You feel compelled to support them. You believe it was your idea all along. They don't push, they lean. They don't force, they influence. And they don't demand, they align your incentives with their agenda. A Machiavellian will never say, "Do this for me." Instead, they'll design a situation where doing it benefits your ego, your self-image, or your values. Manipulation, to them, is simply giving you a reason, one that feels good, to act in their favor. 4. The tactic of controlled unpredictability. One of the most terrifying tools in their arsenal is calibrated inconsistency, not chaos, not volatility, strategic unpredictability. Just enough to keep others off balance, attentive, cautious, eager to please, uncertain about missteps, and yearning for approval. They shift between warm and distant with surgical intention, not to confuse you emotionally, but to condition you behaviorally. The moment you think you understand them, they subtly change the rules. Not dramatically, not destructively, just enough to remind you that the ground beneath you is not stable unless they want it to be. 5. The power of selective transparency. Machiavellians understand a truth most people never realize. Perfect mystery is suspicious. Controlled vulnerability is disarming. So they reveal things strategically. A personal story that makes them relatable. A flaw small enough to seem human, but harmless enough to maintain control. A moment of vulnerability that activates your empathy. A confession that makes you lower your defenses. These are not accidents, these are precision tools. They give you just enough to make you believe you know them. You don't. You know the version of them crafted for your consumption. You know the illusion, not the architect behind it. 6. The rule of 3. How Machiavellians influence outcomes. Every Machiavellian influence strategy follows a simple pattern. 1. Shape perception. They change how you see the situation before they change how you react to it. Number 2, direct attention. They highlight details that serve their agenda while downplaying everything else. Number 3, control consequences. They ensure the safest, easiest, most rewarding option is the one they want you to choose. That is why Machiavellian manipulation doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like logic. It feels like a sensible choice. It feels like your choice. 7, the tactic of plausible deniability. A true Machiavellian never leaves fingerprints. Every word they speak is crafted to be misinterpretable. Every request can be denied. Every action can be reframed. Every hint can be dismissed as coincidence. If you confront them, you lose. If you doubt them, you seem paranoid. If you expose them, you look unstable. They never give you enough evidence to accuse them without consequence. Their greatest power is always having an exit. 8. They win before the game begins. You're trying to win the argument. They're trying to win the dynamic. You're fighting for clarity. They're fighting for advantage. You're reacting to what they did. They're responding to what you will do next. They don't play the moment. They play the outcome. To you, the interaction is happening now. To them, the interaction began long before you entered the room. This is the Machiavellian difference. They don't control the situation. They control the trajectory. 9. They don't destroy you. They shape you. This is what makes them truly dangerous. Machiavellians don't break people easily. They break people gradually. They don't tear down your confidence in one blow. They shave off pieces of it over days, weeks, months, until you no longer recognize its absence. They don't manipulate your identity. They manipulate your choices until your identity shifts in response. A Machiavellian doesn't conquer you. They rewire you. Quietly, patiently, efficiently. This is the Machiavellian Playbook. Not loud, not dramatic, not unstable. Cold, calculated, and invisible. They move like a shadow because they understand the truth. If you see the trap, you won't walk into it. So they make sure you don't see the trap. You see the path, the opportunity, the solution, the comfort. You see anything except the truth. The Machiavellian already decided where this story ends, and now that you understand their tactics, it's time to see how they operate when they step into the world around you. Part 3. The Social Predator. Imagine a predator that doesn't hunt in the dark, but in broad daylight. A predator who blends perfectly into the environment, smiling quietly in meetings, offering help without being asked, appearing friendly, competent, reliable. Someone who wins your trust before you ever consider the possibility that you should be protecting it. This isn't the narcissist with their loud ego. This isn't the psychopath with their reckless impulses. No, this is the Machiavellian, the most socially functional predator of them all. The Machiavellian enters a room like a ghost with a plan. When they walk into a room, they're not thinking about how they look or how they're perceived. They're thinking, who holds the power? Who believes they do? Who controls the narrative? Who craves approval? Who is insecure? Who is easily influenced? Who is easily underestimated? Who is emotionally reactive? Who is a threat? Who is a tool? You walk into the room to participate. They walk into a room to survey. They don't speak first. They don't speak loudly. They don't speak often. They listen, because information is the currency of domination. By the time you hear their first sentence, they've already built a psychological map of every person in that room. They rise quietly, because quiet people are never suspected. A Machiavellian doesn't claw their way to the top. They slip into positions of influence. They offer help to the right people. They agree with the right opinions. They reinforce the right egos. They appear neutral during conflict. They present themselves as the reasonable one. This creates a powerful illusion. Everyone sees them as harmless. Everyone sees them as balanced. Everyone sees them as essential. And when someone is essential, no one questions their motives. It's not like they hide in the background. It's that they know exactly when to be visible and exactly when to disappear. This is why Machiavellians climb faster than loud, competitive personalities. The narcissists demand the spotlight. The Machiavellian manages it. They use conflicts as stepping stones. Where most people avoid conflict, Machiavellians see opportunity. They don't fight, they don't argue, they don't attack, they orchestrate. Watch closely in any workplace or social group. When a conflict arises, the Machiavellian is never directly involved, but somehow they always benefit. They don't create the arguments, they position themselves to profit from them. They drop a hint here, a suggestion there, a subtle redirection, and suddenly two people are at war while the Machiavellian sits quietly polishing their next move. If it escalates too far, they step in as the neutral mediator, earning trust, gratitude, and influence. If it helps them, they let the fire burn. A Machiavellian doesn't win battles, they win landmarks. Conflict is simply how territory changes hands. They build alliances without loyalty. A Machiavellian alliance is not a friendship, it's not a partnership, it's not mutual respect. It's utility. They ally with the confident to hide behind, the emotional to manipulate, the insecure to control, the powerful to mirror, the underestimated to weaponize, the lonely to bind, the ambitious to exploit, and the naive to feed false hope. Every alliance has an expiration date. A Machiavellian doesn't break alliances, they simply stop feeding them, and because they were never emotionally invested, they walk away without hesitation. It doesn't matter how long, how close, how meaningful the connection seemed. If the value runs dry, so does the relationship. To a Machiavellian, loyalty is a tool, not a trait. They dominate without confrontation. The most terrifying thing about Machiavellians is that they rarely fight. They don't argue, they don't debate, they don't raise their voice. Dominance to them is not about force, it's about direction. They control the room by asking questions that shape perception, redirecting conversations subtly, withholding information strategically, timing their responses perfectly, offering solutions before anyone else, observing emotional tells, choosing the perfect moment to speak. They speak calmly, slowly, deliberately, like every word has weight, and because they never react emotionally, they always appear rational. This is why Machiavellians win leadership roles. People trust the calmest person in the room. People follow the most composed voice. People submit to certainty, and a Machiavellian never shows uncertainty. They identify the weak link instantly. Not weak in character, but weak in structure. They look for people who are overly emotional, eager to please, lacking self-awareness, hungry for approval, isolated, insecure, morally rigid, easily flattered, conflict avoidant, inconsistent in boundaries. To you, these are traits. To the Machiavellian, these are entry points. They know exactly which emotional lever to pull with each person. With one person, it's fear. With another, it's ego. With another, it's guilt. It's belonging. It's validation. It's incentives. And because Machiavellians feel no emotional guilt, they pull those levers with clinical precision. They stay unaffected while others fall apart. In every workspace, school, friend group, or social circle, there is always chaos somewhere. Drama, arguments, backstabbing, tension, fear, rumors, power struggles. And in the middle of it all, there is always one person who stays calm, controlled, rational, unshaken. That person is often the Machiavellian. They do not panic when others panic. They do not crumble under social pressure. They do not get lost in emotion, because they're always operating from 2 levels above the situation. Where everyone else sees the moment, they see the pattern. Where everyone else feels threatened, they see opportunity. Where everyone else tries to survive, they plan to benefit. A Machiavellian is not calm because they're centered. They're calm because they're prepared. They step into power like it was vacant. Machiavellians don't beg for power or demand respect. They wait until the person in charge makes a mistake, loses credibility, cracks emotionally, becomes overwhelmed, exposes inconsistency, or fails to lead. And then, quietly, they step in. They offer solutions. They calm the tension. They reorganize chaos. They provide clarity. And suddenly, people begin asking them what they think. Power isn't stolen. It's inherited from the one who fails to hold it. And Machiavellians always hold it. Not because they seek power desperately, but because they handle it efficiently. This is the social predator. Not the loudest, not the brightest, not the strongest, the most strategic. They don't dominate through charisma, they dominate through calculation. And as you move to the next part of this story, you will see exactly what they can accomplish when their intelligence, patience, and moral flexibility collide with the right environment. Part 4. Case Studies of Cold Strategy. There's a misconception about manipulators, that they're dramatic, explosive, and obvious. But the Machiavellian is not a hurricane, they're erosion. Slow, silent, surgical. Precise enough that you don't notice the damage until you're standing in the ruins. These case studies are not fiction. They are composites of real patterns, real strategies, real outcomes you've seen in your own life, even if you didn't know the name for them. Let's begin. Case Study 1. The Charming Executor, the Machiavellian who weaponizes likability. He wasn't the smartest person in the company, he wasn't the most experienced, he wasn't even the most confident, but he understood people. He understood that while competence is respected, likability is trusted. So he crafted his image carefully, agreeable but not eager, helpful but not servile, confident but never arrogant, approachable but not overly familiar. He laughed at the right jokes, complimented the right achievements, remembered birthdays, pets, hobbies, favorite restaurants. He wasn't building friendships, he was building positioning. Then, one afternoon, he noticed something. His boss was stressed, behind on deadlines, overwhelmed, and in a single gesture, the Machiavellian seized the moment. Hey, I can take some of that off your plate if you need. A simple sentence, a quiet offer, a wedge placed in the door of opportunity. 2 months later, his boss was telling upper management, "I don't know what I'd do without him." 3 months later, "Well, he already handles half my responsibilities." 6 months later, a promotion opens, and with a single sentence whispered privately, he sealed the deal. "I want to help stabilize the department. I know how everything works already." No begging, no drama, no show. Just a silent climb built on carefully engineered likability. This is a Machiavellian tactic. Dominate the emotional environment by mastering the social temperature. Case Study 2. The Gentle Knife. The Machiavellian who destroys reputations softly. She never raised her voice. She never insulted anyone. She never engaged in gossip. In fact, she often discouraged it. But when she saw someone as a threat, she didn't attack them. She nudged the perception around them. This is how she eliminated rivals. She would say, "I love him. He's so passionate. Sometimes he gets overwhelmed, though. Have you noticed that? Maybe he just needs better structure." A positive statement wrapped around a subtle incision. To someone else, "He's incredibly smart. I really wish he communicated more clearly. People often misunderstand him." To the boss, "He's great. My only worry is he might burn out. He takes on so much emotional weight. I hope he's okay." She didn't accuse, she didn't gossip, she didn't slander. She seeded concerns. Not enough to be suspicious, just enough to be memorable. And over months, those seeds grew into undeniable impressions. He's emotional, he's unstable, he's inconsistent. She destroyed him without ever appearing destructive. That is the Machiavellian genius. Reputation assassination delivered as concern. Case Study 3. The Strategic Partner. The Machiavellian in relationships. He didn't love her. Not the way she thought, not in the way she hoped. But he didn't pretend to love her either. He pretended to mirror her perfectly. Her passions became his interest. Her values became his beliefs. Her dreams became his plans. Her insecurities became his opportunities. She believed she found a soulmate. In reality, she found a strategist. Machiavellians in relationships don't love emotionally. They love strategically. They love your stability, loyalty, predictability, usefulness, social connections, resources, and devotion. They understand the psychology of attachment better than you understand your own heart, and their greatest weapon is their ability to create the illusion of compatibility. But once they secure the bond, the mask shifts subtly. Not a dramatic change, a chilling one. He stops mirroring her. He starts editing her. A comment about how she reacts. A suggestion about how she thinks. A planted doubt about her memory. A quiet comparison to someone else. A gentle critique disguised as help. He reshapes her, slowly, quietly, strategically. Not because he wants her broken, but because a broken person is easier to position. This is a Machiavellian lover. Not a partner, but an architect of control. Case Study 4. The Shadow at the Top. The Machiavellian who rules without ever being the face. He never took credit. He never sought spotlight. He never positioned himself as a leader. Instead, he positioned himself behind one. He identified a charismatic, ambitious, easily influenced superior and became indispensable to him. He fed him ideas that felt like his own. He planted doubts that seemed like intuition. He redirected decisions gently. He shaped alliances invisibly. He framed narratives subtly. He wasn't the king, he was the Kingmaker. And the king never realized whose hand was on the throne. When things went well, the leader took credit. When things fell apart, the leader took blame. The Machiavellian was untouchable. Safe from exposure, safe from confidence, safe from scrutiny. He didn't need the crown, he owned the person who wore it. This is advanced Machiavellianism. Power without visibility, control without responsibility. Case Study 5. The Quiet Destroyer. The Machiavellian who wins by letting others lose. The Machiavellian didn't manipulate outcomes, he manipulated expectations. He knew one truth. People will destroy themselves if you give them the right opportunity. So he never set traps, he never lied, he never interfered. He simply praised someone's weakest trait, gave them responsibilities above their skill level, encouraged their overconfidence, positioned them in places where failure was likely, kept them too busy to prepare, subtly linked their success to unstable people, motivated them to reveal their flaws publicly, and then he waited. He didn't sabotage them, he simply lit the fuse and let them carry the bomb. When they fell, it looked self-inflicted, and he was the one who comforted them afterward. Not because he cared, but because he wanted to stay close to the next opportunity they might create. This is the Machiavellian at their coldest, winning without ever appearing to play. This is cold strategy in the real world. At this level, Machiavellianism isn't dramatic. It's not loud. It's not cinematic in a Hollywood sense. It's cinematic in a Hannibal Lecter sense. Quiet, calculated, intimate, inevitable. Power acquired not through force, but through precision. Control achieved not through domination, but through choreography. Influence won not through charisma, but through understanding. They don't need to be feared to be dangerous. They only need to be underestimated. And now that we've seen how they operate in the world, it's time to confront the most important part of this story. What you can do about it. Part 5. Defending yourself against a Machiavellian. There's a truth you need to understand before anything else. You cannot beat a Machiavellian by playing their game. You cannot out-manipulate someone who does not feel guilt. You cannot out-strategize someone who has been studying you quietly since day one. You cannot outmaneuver someone who mapped your reactions before you even knew you were reacting. But you can become someone they can't use, someone they can't predict, someone they can't bend or shape or steer, because Machiavellians do not prey on strength, they prey on psychological blind spots. You remove those blind spots, and you remove their power. This is how. 1. Become emotionally unreadable. A Machiavellian's power comes from reading you. Your tone, hesitation, micro-expressions, insecurities, reactions, your emotional cracks, your desire to be seen, your instinct to explain yourself. So the first defense is simple. Stop giving away information. Not by being cold, but by being boringly neutral. Short answers, calm tone, unreactive posture. Not hostile, not defensive, not emotional. Just unreadable. A Machiavellian cannot manipulate what they cannot measure. If you give them no data, you give them no leverage. Number 2. Set boundaries without explaining anything. The worst mistake people make with Machiavellians is believing they need to justify their boundaries. You don't. A boundary with a Machiavellian should sound like this. No, that won't work for me. I'm not available. I'll get back to you. That's not something I'm comfortable doing. Period. Silence. No reasons, no justifications, no emotional context. Because the moment you explain your boundary, you reveal the weaknesses behind it. And a Machiavellian will always attack the weakness, never the boundary itself. Number 3. Learn to pause before responding. Your greatest weapon is not intelligence, it's the pause. Machiavellians rely on your impulse, your need to defend, correct, clarify, respond, react, your need to feel silence. So when they say something designed to trigger you, pause, wait, think. Not for minutes, just long enough to break their timing, because a Machiavellian's power is not just their words, it's their tempo. You break their rhythm, you break their control. 4. Never reveal what you truly value. A Machiavellian doesn't need to know your fears to exploit you. They just need to know what you care about. Your family, reputation, your job, your status, your goals, insecurities, dreams, your principles, your emotional triggers. They weaponize whatever you reveal, so the rule is simple. Talk openly, reveal nothing. Share stories, share opinions, share jokes, but never share your vulnerabilities, your sensitive details, or emotional wounds. Never share your deepest fears or anything you would never want used against you. Information is currency. To a Machiavellian, your vulnerabilities are gold. Don't give them wealth. 5. Watch what they do, not what they say. A Machiavellian never lies directly, they lie through implication. Their words often mean nothing, their patterns are everything. Watch their consistency, their follow-through, hidden alliances, favors they don't need to offer, timing of their help. Watch their reactions when others succeed, energy during conflict, relationship with truth. Watch their comfort with manipulation. Do not judge them by what they claim to be. Judge them by the trails they leave behind. Machiavellians reveal themselves through structure, not sentences. 6. Don't compete. Remove yourself from the game. The most effective defense is strategic withdrawal. Not dramatic, not emotional, not confrontational. Just distance. Machiavellians can manipulate your reactions, your perception, your environment, your opportunities, your emotions, your expectations, but they cannot manipulate what they cannot reach. You don't have to expose them. You don't have to win. You don't have to teach them a lesson. All you need to do is remove yourself from the arena. Predators cannot hunt what doesn't step into their field. 7. Become high cost, low reward. Machiavellians are strategic parasites. They are efficient, calculating, cost aware. If using you becomes too difficult, too unpredictable, time-consuming, too emotionally unrewarding, too risky, resistant, or too confusing, they'll drop you. They're not sentimental, they're not attached, and they're not loyal. They simply move on to easier prey. So make yourself harder to sway, harder to read, persuade, harder to guilt, harder to intimidate, and to manipulate. Become a logistical inefficiency. To a Machiavellian, the path of least resistance is the only path worth walking. Block that path, and they'll disappear. 8. Know the one thing Machiavellians fear. It's not confrontation, it's not exposure, it's not strength or intelligence. What Machiavellians fear is this: an unpredictable opponent. Machiavellians rely on patterns, they rely on human predictability, they rely on emotional logic. Whenever you pause unexpectedly, detach emotionally, break your usual behavior, and become unreadable, when you refuse to justify yourself, stay calm during provocation, decline without guilt, and act in ways they didn't anticipate, you break their psychological model of you. And when they can't predict you, they can't control you. Unpredictability is the antidote to strategy. Chaos, when used intentionally, is checkmate. 9. Understand that their power was never magic, it was ignorance. Once you learn the playbook, tactics, laws, motivations, psychological levers, the patterns, the timing, the posture, the framing, the incentives, you no longer fear them, you see them for what they are. Not masterminds, not supervillains, not geniuses. Just humans with a very specific set of tools. Tools that break the moment you recognize them. The moment you stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically, their influence evaporates. Machiavellians are not unstoppable, they're merely unnoticed. Once you see the predator, you stop being the prey. You've just witnessed one fragment of the human mind's hidden machinery, but the truth is, there's always another layer, another mask, another lie. Subscribe if you want to keep peeling back the skin of reality. Leave your thoughts below. Every comment is another voice echoing in the dark. Until we meet again, don't trust everything your mind tells you.